you motherfucking sunshines. I got an addiction, man. Ah, what's up, motherfuckers? Been a hot shit minute, right? Hope y'all are staying virus-free during all this pandemic shit. Personally, I haven't had gonorrhea in months, so I'm doing all right, if you ask me. I seriously hope y'all doing all right. On this whole pandemic thing, it's weird to my ass because, I mean, I live up here in the woods, up at Mountain Crossings and Neal Gap on the Appalachian Trail, so this whole deal really hasn't affected my life one bit. But the main purpose of this video today is talk about some camera gear now. You know, I know y'all want me to talk about the Durgo 2 and the Hyperlight Pack and my fucking cook pot and stoves and all that shit. Yeah, that's fun to talk about, and I nerd out on that stuff too, but quite honestly, it doesn't really fucking matter, to be honest with you. Not on a through hike. I mean, yeah, gear, the lighter you buy is important, but you're talking to a motherfucker who carries like 8 pounds of camera gear, so what the fuck do I know about base weight, right? But I do like to nerd out on camera gear, and I've gotten a little bit more equipment over the past couple months, so I figure I'd show you off. Now, this isn't the exact gear I'm going to be carrying on the CDT next year, but you know, a lot of it will be, and I'm going to go through the current setup I'm currently using. All right, before we get into the actual camera gear itself, I'm going to go over my pack. This is a pack I just recently got. This is a company called Atlas Packs. They're out of Phoenix, Arizona, I reckon. I've been looking, now obviously I won't through hike with this fucking backpack. It weighs 4 pounds empty. But this pack I bought specifically just for like weekend trips around here. It is a camera backpack, but it's geared towards hikers. Obviously, looking at this thing, it looks like a hiking backpack, right? But it's actually got a camera cube inside this. So I've thrown all my gear in this thing, and I can fit my tent, my sleeping pad, my cook pot, all the shit I need to do on a normal hiking backpacking trip, along with having the camera cube for my camera gear. So for like 2 days, this is perfect. It gives you just enough room for like 2 days of food. The food is the main thing. I can take this down in 4 days. There's just not the room for it. But just for a weekend trip, this is going to be awesome. I might do a full gear review of this once I get some miles on it, but right now I'm just in the testing period of this thing. All right, so for the camera. Now, as many of you know, if followed me last year, I carried the Sony a7 III. It's a full-frame mirrorless camera by Sony. That camera is badass, right? I love that fucking camera. As many of you know, I lost that thing in a snowbank up in Washington State, and I shed a few tears. It was horrible. But when I moved up to Maine, I'm like, I got to get a new fucking camera. I don't care what it is. So a friend of mine up there had a old Sony a7 II full frame mirrorless. This is like 6 years old. I think this camera came out in 2014. They've made the a7 III since then. But I just needed a camera on my hands. It is still a 24 megapixel camera. So this is all the photos you've seen me on Instagram taking around here on mountain crossings and shit. This is the camera I've been using. Now, as far as the lens goes, my main lens I used last year was a 16-35 wide angle zoom lens, and this is the one I've got currently. Now, when I lost my camera last year on the PCT, the lens was on it, obviously, so I lost my lens too. I got a replacement. It's the same exact lens I carried on the PCT last year, 16-35 f4. The 2.8 version, they do make the G Master, but that thing costs over $2,000, and who needs a 2.8 aperture when you're shooting wide angle out in the fucking wilderness anyway? So the f4 does just fine by me. Now, this camera I probably won't be carrying on the CDT next year. Sony is supposed to release the a7 IV. Now, the rumors have been floating around the interstate for months now, and shit, over a year. They keeps getting delayed because of this whole virus thing, but hopefully the Sony a7 IV will be released by the end of this year, if not early enough next year to where I can get it for the CDT. That's the camera I plan on using on the CDT. It's the same full frame, supposedly going to be a 24 megapixel camera, the same megapixel count and everything, except the a7 IV. Now, this is just rumors, obviously, but it's supposed to have a full fold-out articulating screen. If you watch any of the newer Sony cameras that have come out in the past months, they all have the articulating screen. And it doesn't sound like a big deal, but for some of the shots I take, especially like my coffee scene in the morning, I am like shooting blind. I can't see when I'm filming. So, and in some of the walking by shots and all that shit you saw last year, a lot of them were blown out, and a lot of them I couldn't use because I couldn't see what my exposure was. I think that articulating screen is gonna be worth the money of upgrading just for that very reason alone, so I can make sure I'm exposed right and everything's in focus and all that shit. It became a major pain in the ass last year, so I really hope that new a7 IV has a fold-out screen. If they up the megapixel count, so be it, but the main thing is going to have that screen. Now, another reason I won't be carrying this on the CDT next year is the battery. When they released the Sony a7 III, they upgraded the battery on that camera. These batteries from the a7 II suck ball sacks, okay? If I was going to carry this thing on the CDT, I would have to carry like 7, 8 of these fucking batteries. They don't last very long, right? And the A7 III and I'm sure the A7 IV will have the newer battery. And I was able to get last year at least a day out of a battery. Okay, I only carried I think 3 on the PCT, and I really didn't need them all. But yeah, that battery juice I fucking need, and I don't want to be carrying multiple battery banks. So hopefully the A7 IV gets released, and I'll be rocking that thing on the CDT next year. I'll have this one as a backup in case I break cameras, because y'all know my camera history. I have broken four cameras over the past 2 years. I use them. Now, as far as audio goes, and I used to talk shit about these in the past, but after using one last year, it's well worth it for audio. This is a Rode Video Micro Dead Cat is what it's called. Just cuts down on wind noise. So this is definitely worth carrying. And then as far as the upgrades go, okay, I did get one more lens. Now at 16 to 35, I will be carrying 100%. I last year found myself on the PCT with these grand views wanting to get some more reach. I wasn't able to do it with my wide angle lens. There is enough times I found myself saying, damn, I wish I had a longer telephoto lens. Now, whether or not I carry this bitch on the CDT is yet to be determined. It is not fucking light, okay? This here is the Sony 70-200 f4 lens. It's not the G Master again. They do make a 2.8 version of this, but nobody needs that shit. At least I don't. And I think with this thing I've been dicking around with here in Georgia, I've gotten some killer shots with this lens. So if anything else I carry, it's gonna be this lens. Hopefully I can justify carrying the weight for enough of the shots I plan on getting on the CDT with it. But just using it around here in Georgia, I'm glad I bought this thing. Whether or not I carried it or not, I still am glad I bought this fucking lens. It is pretty damn awesome. One of my favorite things to photograph is solo trees that are just out in the distance. And I saw a lot of them on the PCT last year. I couldn't get it close enough with my wide angle zoom. If I was to have this lens, I can zoom right on that fucking tree and get some killer shots. So, all right, so now this next item I'm gonna pull out of my pack. I know I'm gonna hear it in the fucking comments, and quite honestly, I really don't give a shit, okay? This here is the DJI Mavic Mini, okay? Now, I know what you fuckers are gonna say. Do not carry a fucking drone in the goddamn wilderness. It sounds like a loud ass mosquito and it annoys the shit out of everybody. Okay, yes, I fucking get it. However, I want you to go and watch your favorite fucking show on History Channel or Discovery Channel and Dual Survival and assholes drinking their own piss. I want you to watch one of those shows and count how many fucking drone shots you see. It's every other shot on those shows. Those shows are the shows I watch and I get inspiration from to film these goddamn videos for y'all out on the trail. Yes, these things are an annoyance. That being said, they take killer fucking shots. This weighs 249 grams, okay? It is light as shit. If I do take this thing, I will obviously obey the laws. Wilderness areas, off limits. National parks, off limits. Even if I'm in a legal zone to fly this thing, and there's people around me, I'm not gonna throw this thing up in the air unless I ask them and say, hey, do you guys mind if I throw this drone up in the air for 15 goddamn minutes to get a cool ass aerial view? That's when, if and when I use this thing, okay? I'm not gonna go out there flying it around grizzly bears' heads and, you know, looking up fucking down chicks' shirts that are down below me on a ridgeline, okay? This is to get up the video quality for y'all for the CDT next year. There was plenty of times on the PCT last year, I wish I had one of these things. So if anything gets left at home next year, I haven't decided yet, but if anything gets left at home next year, it's gonna be this. All right, another item I picked up new for next year is a ND filter. Now, they're not new for me. I carried an ND filter last year on the PCT as well. However, the one I carried last year, I think it was a Tiffin, I think it was a 2 to 5 stop variable ND filter. And basically, if you don't know what these things are, they're basically sunglasses for your lens. You know, the general rule of thumb when you're shooting video is for the shutter speed is 1/double your frame rate. So I generally shoot at 24 frames a second, so my shutter speed is locked in at 1/50th of a second. That's what my camera allows me to do. It just allows you to get the depth of field at shooting at like an f4 aperture without blowing out your background. And now the filter I used last year, the Tiffin, it was a free rotating one, meaning it kept spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning. Now, when you do that and you don't check it before you shoot the video, you'll get, these are two polarized filters in here. And if you go too far, those two polarizer filters cross and there's a big black X in your shot. And that happened to me many times last year. Without being able to check my exposure, if I was pointing the camera at myself, I couldn't see what was on the screen. So a lot of those shots I lost last year because there was a big black X right in the middle of my video. So this one, what it does is when you rotate it, it goes 2 to 5 stops, right? But it stops. So I turn it the other way, it stops. Turn it the other way, it stops eventually. So it prevents you from getting that black X in your shot. I'm hoping this one will solve that issue for next year. This one will usually sits on my camera 24 hours a day. I never take it off. Next year I might be taking it off for video or for photos rather, because you know, having anything in front of your lens for a photo does dampen the sharpness of your video a little bit. So maybe for long exposure shots and things like this, I'll use it for photography. But if I'm just doing a general landscape shot, I might take this off to take a photo. But for video, this thing lives on my camera all day long. All right, as far as editing goes, what do I edit on? Well, last year on the PCT, I carried a full-size iPad. It was a cheap-ass iPad. It wasn't an iPad Pro. And it was well worth carrying. And I'm carrying an iPad again next year. Now, I didn't really need the full-size iPad. That was what was available at the time last year, and it was the cheapest option for me. I'm glad I had it. It makes editing a hell of a lot easier. Now, what do I edit on? The software I use is called LumaFusion. LumaTouch, LumaFusion. It's only available for mobile devices. It is the best mobile editing software, in my opinion, that you can fucking use. There's plenty more out there, and they all do the trick. But LumaFusion is pretty amazing, and I'm still learning. I'm no expert on it, but for a mobile video editing software, it is pretty damn amazing. So that's what I'll be using again. But as far as the iPad goes, I've upgraded to, I don't know if you say upgraded or downgraded, I've got a smaller iPad. This is the iPad mini. This is going to give me plenty of real estate on the screen to edit my videos in my tent at night. Now that LumaFusion edit app you can get on your phone, and I have it on my phone, but having the extra real estate screen, because I got fat sausage fingers to edit on, is going to be amazing. And I also can use this to edit my photos if I so desire. Most of the photos I edited last year were on my phone, and then I did video on my iPad. But having the extra screen real estate is better for video or for photo editing as well. So I might double duty and do photo editing and video editing on this iPad mini for next year. Gonorrhea coming back, shit. All right, so the last piece of gear that I need to film these videos for y'all is a tripod. Okay, I couldn't do it without it. It makes my life a hell of a lot easier. The tripod that I used last year on the PCT, as well as the Appalachian Trail, is this guy right here. This is the Manfrotto. I think it's called a tabletop tripod. I don't know the exact name on it, but it's very small, it's very lightweight, and it's very durable. This thing worked out well. This is what I use to film my coffee scenes in the morning, setting up all those random ass angles, as well as doing my walking away shots while I'm hiking. Now this thing, it just fits right in my sternum strap. There's a little sewn-in loop on my Hyperlight pack. This thing can just tuck right in and it just sits there hands-free. When I need to use it, just pull it out. I normally have Arca Swiss plate on this thing, which goes well with my Peak Designs capture clip. And that thing just slips right on. I set it down on the trail, walk past the camera, and you pick it up, slide it back in my sternum strap. It worked out well. Now that being said, there's plenty of other times I needed to get a higher up shot and I couldn't do it. I had to get very creative the way I set up my camera, on tree stumps, on rocks, whatever, random ass shit, to get up high. I wasn't able to just set this thing down low a lot of the times because brush was high and rocks and shit were in the way. So with that being said, I've upgraded my tripod. I'm actually filming on it now, using it to film. It is the Peak Designs carbon fiber tripod. Now, this thing is expensive as shit. There's no other way to say it. It's expensive, okay? They do make an aluminum version that's a little bit cheaper, but as far as weight goes, if I was to carry a full-size tripod, carbon fiber is the way to go to save my ass and my back, a little bit of weight savings. So it is $600. It was a $600 tripod, the carbon fiber one. It is pretty awesome, okay? I mean, you're dicking around with it around here. It is pretty amazing. Now, even though it's carbon fiber, it does weigh almost 3 pounds, okay? It's not light by any means in the thru hiking world. So it's definitely a luxury item that I'm gonna be hauling the weight for. It's gonna allow me to get up high, not only for video purposes, but for photography, doing long exposure shots. I'll be able to get up high, put it down low as well. It's gonna be amazing. Some other random ass shit that I carry in my backpack for camera gear is obviously a way to charge all this shit. And last year I used the 20,000 milliamp hour anchor charger. Anchors have been tried and true. They are durable. They hold up over a through hike. So 20,000 seemed to be the right amount of juice for me, along with carrying a couple extra batteries for my camera to get everything I needed to charge, headlamp, phone, camera, all that shit. This was enough. Now, through the high Sierras last year, I actually carried another one. I had a 13,000 just to be safe. I don't think I ever needed that much juice except for one time. But the 20,000 is probably what I'll start with on the CDT and go from there. I also carry a rocket blower. This was an issue last year. My sensor got dirty constantly, and now that I'm possibly carrying 2 lenses, I'm gonna be opening up and exposing the sensor more. So I'm definitely gonna need this rocket blower to clean up my lens or my sensor. On top of that, I had to clean my sensor a couple times last year. In that case, I ordered these on Amazon. These are just sensor cleaning kits. I'll probably carry a few of these, so from time to time when I'm in town, I can go ahead and clean my sensor, because there's plenty of dust spots on there I found in my photos last year that I had to edit out. Other than that, I have a Pelican SD card holder. Now, I used a shit ton of storage last year on the PCT. I think there's 1,200 gigabytes of footage I had last year. I used up every damn one of these cards. Most of these are 128 gigs, some are 64, but I need all this storage capacity for all the footage I take during the day. Other than that, it's just random ass Apple dongles. Thank you, Steve Jobs, you asshole. SD card, camera adapter, card reader, all that shit I carry as well as the cords that go along with all this stuff. This is a lot of fucking weight. It's more so than I carried last year, obviously, and on the AT. If I had to weigh all this shit right now, I would probably guess that's 8 to 10 pounds of camera gear. That is a lot of fucking weight. Like I said, whether or not I carry all this stuff is yet to be determined. I got to test all this stuff around here doing shakedown hikes and figure out exactly what I am willing to carry for next year. But I think if I end up carrying all this stuff, the video quality that I'll be able to get with all this stuff will be well worth carrying the weight for you fuckers. Because this is the last of the Triple Crown hikes, man. I want to have the best videos I can possibly have. So we'll see, man. This is a lot of fucking weight, but we'll figure it out. All right, that's gonna be it for me. I just want to touch base with y'all, and you know, I'm staying somewhat sane up here. Luckily, I live on the AT, so it hasn't been that bad. If I was in town for a full year, I would have lost my shit a long time ago. But still looking at that calendar, still looking at the clock, counting down the days and the months until I can step foot on the fucking CDT. I cannot wait. Till then, this is your boy IB Tat. We'll holler at you fuckers next time. All my bones are dislocated. I just keep on wondering.